I'm in volume 4 of the Bible story. And on the front is David and Goliath. Okay, we're in part 1, story 8, a very close shave. That's what it says. That's the title. After David and his men left Keilah, it seemed it it seems that they couldn't get back to the cave of Aldum, couldn't get back to the cave at Aldum. So they went and lived in the woods on the mountainside in the wilderness of Ziph, or Ziph, Ziph. There David had a visitor whom he had not seen for a long time. It was his old friend Jonathan. Somehow the young prince had found out where he was, and had taken the risk of coming to see him. How glad the two friends must have been seeing each other again. And of what a lot of things they had to talk about. Jonathan was sorry for all the trouble that had come to David. But fear not, he said to him, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find thee, and thou shalt be king over Israel, and I shall be next unto thee, and that also my father knoweth. It was clear now that what was the matter with Saul. He was afraid that David might become king someday, so he wanted to kill him and get him out of the way. But Jonathan was sure God was with David, and that one day the kingdom would be his. How noble it was for him, and the king's own son, the heir to the throne, to say, I will be next unto thee. It takes much meekness and grace to say that. At last the two young friends had to say goodbye, and David abode in the woods, and Jonathan went to his house. Probably he went by night, for you can imagine what the king would have said if he learnt where his son had been. But though Jonathan was so friendly, the natives of the wilderness were not. To them, thinking to gain favor with the king, went and told him exactly where David and his men were living. Worse still, they offered to lead Saul's soldiers to the very spot. One part, they said, shall be to deliver him into the king's hand. Saul was pleased, but he wanted to make sure. Go, I pray you, he said to the Zephonites. Prepare, prepare yet, and know and see my palace where he haunt is. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. Prepare yet, and know and see his place where he haunt is. And who hath seen him there? For it is told to me that he dealeth very stubbornly. Okay, some of the King James words kind of spin. Uh, See therefore and take knowledge of all the lurking places. And then, of course, it has the illustration of David talking to Jonathan. And there's the picture. Take knowledge of all the lurking places where he hideth himself, and come ye again to me with a certainty, and I will go with you. And it will come to pass that if he be in the land, that I will search him out throughout all the thousands of Judah. This time Saul thought he really would catch David. The spies were so certain they knew exactly where he was hiding. Being dwellers of the wilderness, they claimed to know all David's lurking places, knew exactly where he was hiding. Being dwellers of the wilderness, okay, that's what it is. They claimed to know all David's lurking places. But smart as they weren't quite as smart as David. For when they let Saul's soldiers into their spot where they were sure David and his men would be found, lo, nobody was there. Desperately they roamed through the woods in search of them, but all 600 men had disappeared. Once more news Once more news of Saul's plans had leaked through to David, and he and his men had fled, this time to a nearby wilderness of Man. Maon, Man. Of course, it wasn't long before Saul found out what had happened, and soon he and his soldiers were in hot pursuit. What a chase it was! For a while the two bodies of men were so close that Saul's soldiers were on one side of the mountain, while David and his men were on the other side. At last David's band was completely surrounded, and there seemed no way to escape, for Saul and his men compassed David and his men about to take them. Then a miracle happened. Suddenly a man appeared over the crest of a mountain, running on top with top speed toward Saul's soldiers. Everybody saw him knew at once that he was a messenger more important he was a messenger with important tidings. He was he was hasty and come, he said to the king, for the Philistines have invaded the land. The chase was over, and once Saul called his men back from following David and turned to meet the Philistines. So once again, God came to David's rescue, and he and his men were saved. And then it has a picture. It's a two-pager. Give me a second to get my hand situated. And there's the man running up at the top, and there's David or Saul. No, Saul. Okay, this is Saul. Him looking up and seeing the guy running. And that was story 8. Gonna take a break, and then we're gonna go to the next one.